Thank you. It is my pleasure now to introduce Lauren Lane. Lauren is the founder and executive director of Skepticon, a national conference located annually in St. Louis, Missouri that promotes skepticism, science education, and community building. She earned her BFA in drawing from Missouri State University and her MFA in Interdisciplinary Studio from the Memphis College of Art. Skepticon will be held July 28th through the 31st at the St. Louis Union Station Hotel, and it is, and always has been, totally free.
Good morning, wow, that's exciting. Good morning, everyone. You people tell me I'm too loud. Maybe this is the reason.
We can compete on who's louder.
I think you would win, Lauren.
Yes.
That's my worry.
I would.
So I'm super delighted to have Lauren Lane with us this morning. I wanted to have this more of a conversation, particularly so that we can answer your questions afterwards about Skepticon and everything you might want to learn about it. Actually, Jake, the next slide has some information for people about Skepticon, so if we could just advance it. There we go. We'll have this behind us the whole time. We don't let people sell things during our platforms, but since Skepticon is free, we're not selling anything by inviting you to all come to it.
I love a good loophole.
Right, exactly. We're going to squeeze right through that loophole, so we'll just leave this behind us the whole time. So, Lauren, we first met at a Skepticon.
Indeed we did.
What is a Skepticon, and how did it come about?
Sure. So Skepticon is a yearly conference held now in St. Louis, Missouri. It's 3 days. We have everything from workshops, main stage speakers, we have a game night, we have a prom, we have shenanigans. It's definitely unlike any other atheist convention you've been to in that it's free and I dare say super cool. Yeah.
It definitely has more of a cool edge. When was the first Skepticon?
Yeah, good question. I'm not good at math. It was about 15 years ago. I was a wee babe. I was 21, and I was part of a student group at the Missouri State University, formerly Southwest, if any of you are familiar with that. We had a Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster group on campus, and we mainly did it to start some shit. Because I don't know if you're familiar, but there are priests or pastors that go from like college campus to take up space in what are called free speech zones and essentially yell at children about how they're going to hell, they're making horrible life choices, that kind of thing. And so we were like, this is bad, we don't like that. So every time one of them would come to a free speech zone on campus, it was, we made it Pandemonium because we would dress as pirates and we would start a big ruckus around them to kind of detract the attention from them. Singing hymns and basically telling us we're all going to hell.
So wait, so you dressed as these folks are coming to speak at the free speech zone. You're not going to stop them from speaking, obviously. They have their right to be there and speak, but you also go there to provide a different point of view. Why dressing up as pirates?
Well, the flying spaghetti monster religion, it's called Pastafarianism. You dress as a pirate, you believe in a noodly god. You know, you've been touched by his noodly appendage. You wear a colander on your head. I think maybe there's a couple people who have done that on their driver's licenses.
They've worn a colander on their head in their driver's licenses.
Yeah, because it's like a farcical religion. You're like, well, if you can do whatever, then I can wear a colander on my head for my driver's license picture.
So the idea is to kind of draw attention to the absurdity of some of the things these people are saying. So often, I don't know if you've seen these college campus preachers, but they can be very aggressive, very, very unpleasant. I can see people recently graduated college are going, yeah, right, maybe, I'm not sure if this is a new phenomenon or whether it's been around for a long time.
I don't know when it started, but I was determined to try and end it. I don't think I did. But
you didn't end it, but
no.
You did work with this student group to provide a different perspective. How did that lead to Skepticon, though?
Well, it turns out if you have a student group, they give you money for things, and we were like, ooh, money? Let's spend it on something we want. And so we brought a couple speakers to campus one year, and we really did think that no one would come except for us, who we were like a band of 20 to 30 weirdos, and people from off campus and the local community were interested, and so we did it again the next year. And by year 3, we were in one of the largest convention centers in Springfield because it had grown to such large proportions that we needed the space. the growth was significant.
So wait, you started with 2 speakers on campus,
Yes.
and that was the conference, just
Yes.
2 speakers. What, P.Z. Myers and one other person?
Yeah, we're not going to name that one.
I can't
He's
remember who
dead to
that
me.
was. And then just 3 years later, it was so big you needed the biggest conference space in Springfield.
Yeah, you could basically land an airplane in it. It was big.
Did you try that?
No, the roof wasn't
I
retractable.
mean,
which
not
I feel
during
like
the
is-
conference, but
Do you think I have access to like a plane and?
I don't know. It seems like you can do amazing things. So why do you think it grew so fast?
I think it grew so quickly because there was just like this rampant appetite for a community in Springfield and like the middle of the country where it's the buckle of the Bible Belt. There's a lot of people who are very religious. There's not a lot of spaces for people, like-minded individuals who don't believe in a higher power, who believe in science, who want to talk about these kinds of issues, could get together. So I think people were like, oh, it's only a couple hours away. And if you live in the Midwest, like a 4 or 5 hour drive, cake. So it's like, let's get there, let's hang out with our friends, meet some new people. So I think it was just like the right time, yeah.
So started on the college campus, it became too big for the campus,
Yes.
became its own thing. Did you start an organization? Like did you have any idea when you had this first event that you were going to be starting what became a national conference?
No.
So how did you deal with that? I mean, that's wild. You could have just said, "Whoa, this is too big. We can't do this." But you really dug into it. Why do you care so much about this that you created something so enormous?
Lots of reasons. It became evident that like we all liked, and by we I mean like me and my team of volunteers, we really liked doing the work and building the community and having this event, and it just felt really vital and important. Like people were coming to this con and making friends and making connections, coming up to me with their stories and like tears and like this is the only place I can be myself. So it felt really meaningful, and it still does. As far as what keeps me doing it, I would like to say I have very altruistic motives, and I am never a bad person.
It's for the money, right? All that
Yes,
money you've
yes,
made.
That's exactly it. All the $0 I am paid. Yes.
But so you said that people were coming up to you at the convention saying, this is a space where I feel like I can be myself. That might surprise people. Why do you think that space enabled people, what is that about?
Well, I don't know if very many of you in the audience have lived outside of like a bigger city, but Springfield is much smaller than here, and they have more than one like religious college, and I want to say there's a mega church down there. I don't remember. It's probably Saddleback something. And in the workplaces, everywhere you go, churches are how people build their communities. When you're at a workplace, what church do you go to? And there's a lot of having to hide your atheism or your agnosticism. And so being somewhere where you don't have to do that, I think just people realize what a burden had come off of their shoulders.
Is that something I'm intrigued whether any of our members, visitors today have felt like they've ever had to be less than fully honest about their religious beliefs? And okay, yeah, basically all of you. So it is, I think people can appreciate when you're in a space where you don't have to dissemble in that way. It can feel very freeing, and you are providing that for people, it sounds like.
Yes.
So what would you say is the point of Skepticon? Why is it important to keep doing it? Because I can imagine people saying, well, everyone believes it. Well, before the last 2 years, I could imagine people saying, well, everyone likes science, why do you need to have, despairing laughter ensues. Why do you need to have a conference about science skepticism? Why is that important?
I mean, for so many reasons that I don't think I could name all here on a stage, but it's like the community is important, and it's also just important to like constantly remind ourselves that we're not alone. There's people out there that think about like the things that we do, and then just learn about different stuff. Like Lance mentioned a couple of the talks earlier, like, yes, we talk about whether or not there's a God. Yes, we talk about Scientology being bonkers, but we've also had talks about werewolf mythology and how it's used to other people. We've had talks about LSD's effects on the brain. We've had like a sexy poetry night. Like it's so much more than the Jesus question.
What is this is probably an unfair question to spring on you, but what sticks out in your mind as some particularly effective presentations, workshops, topics that have been explored in Skepticon?
Particularly effective ones. I think we stand out as a conference that is willing to have not big names, to have people talk about topics that aren't usual or the usual take on using skeptic tools to think about the world. And I pride myself and my group on like coming up with speakers who will bring us refreshing perspectives.
And can you think of any ones that have done that? Like, because I think that to the extent that many people imagine what a skeptics conference might look like, maybe you've never imagined what such a thing might look like, but if you think about it, they might think, oh, it might be people talking about homeopathy, or it might be people talking about, is the Loch Ness Monster really there, and things like that. Is it all about that sort of thing, or it sounds like it's broader? Yeah,
we've had talks about stuff like that, but these days it's more social justice oriented. One talk I've been thinking about a lot during a pandemic is one by Dr. Micah McKinnon, who had a talk, I want to say 4 years, who knows, time is meaningless, we're in a pandemic. It was called Party Planning for the End of the World or something like that, and it was all about like building a community and being ready for like the end of times. And once the pandemic happened, I was like, this was an oddly prophetic talk that we had at a Skepticon.
But it's not like prepper kind of.
No, it was all like, you have to like get to know your neighbors, build the community with the people around you, like that kind of thing, because who's gonna look out for you but the people around you, your community?
So Lance mentioned this, and you just talked about it a bit, that Skepticon is known as being one of the most pro-social justice events. I just think it's a ridiculous phrase. I mean, who is against social justice? There are people, a lot. So, but you've put it like that, and it's like, what is wrong with you?
Don't we call them Republicans? I mean,
right. So I'm wondering, can you draw the link? Because again, I'm trying to get in the head of people to say, well, what has social justice actually got to do with science and skepticism? They're totally different things. One of them is about figuring out, does astrology really tell you who you are? And the other one is about racial justice or something like that. There's no real connection between them. Can you draw the line between them for people?
Draw the line. I don't know if I can do that. I went to art school twice. Lance also mentioned that. Science.
So paint a picture or something.
All right, you got some paint or like a canvas somewhere around here? But I think social justice of the movement has been a hot button topic for a long time for reasons that are unclear to me, because religion just doesn't affect one aspect of someone's life, it's all aspects. And the more minorities you tack onto your identity, like, the more it affects you. So I would argue, why wouldn't we use the tools of skepticism, of atheism, to look at all aspects of our lives, rather than just, is there a God, and then using that to be intellectually superior to anyone who does?
I want to probe that a bit, and I'm trying to think of a way to ask this question, because it has caused a lot of controversy within the broader humanist community.
Yes.
That, by the way, we're a part of. We're an affiliate of the American Humanist Association, so we're part of that community. And there has been a lot of debate and discussion about how do people who pride themselves on rational thinking and trying to be clear about the world and not accepting dogmatic approaches to things approach topics like racial justice or approach topics like feminism. I think so. I'm really trying to channel a view that I don't share here. So give me a little bit of leeway in trying to articulate what I think the worry is. I think some people firstly feel like some of the conversation around social justice right now is dogmatic itself. Right? I've certainly heard people say that. So you're not allowed to have a different opinion. And so how can that be to do with skepticism? But I also feel like there are people who don't see that a critical analysis of society and how it's set up is part of being skeptical about the world in which we live, that we shouldn't just accept society as it is because it is like that. We should continually ask questions about why it's like that and how it could be. That's not really a question, but what do you think about all that I just said?
I was just about to say, I don't think there's a question in this. I don't know where this is going.
Well, do you think, I'm sure Skepticon has received a lot of negative feedback, as well as for its shift towards addressing a broader range of issues. Because I recall that it wasn't always so focused on social justice issues. There was always a strand, but it wasn't always that much. So you've made a transition. People have probably reacted to it. What are some of the reactions you've seen? How do you feel about it?
Very not nice messages.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the reactions have been both positive and negative. People have really rallied around the social justice messaging, and then people have also told us in so many words that we're the worst people ever. And I gotta say, like, for me and for the con, like, we've definitely transitioned from more of like an atheist, God question kind of talks and topics to more social justice, because I think it's just like cyclical, and whenever you lose your religion or where you come into a non-religious community, you're very fervent about the is there a God thing, and then you kind of like move on from that. You're like, oh, there's other stuff over here that we can talk about that people are passionate about. So I mean, I've moved on from like, is there a God? And I have other interests, which is reflected in the Skepticon programming. And I think, I mean, also with society, like social justice issues have become more topical, more relevant, more interesting than the is there a God question again and again and again.
Yeah, I think that's right about the cultural conversation has moved to a different place. It seems right now that we're living in a time when skepticism is very important. We've got this rampant misinformation, fake news, conspiracy theories, which lots and lots of people believe in. What do you think about the importance of a conference like Skepticon in the current climate?
I feel like it's very important. Like I've always been very called to do Skepticon. I've always thought it was very important to do, but I remember we had a conference right after Trump got elected. I don't know if Trump is a triggering word for you all. I'm sorry. But right after that election, and I remember just like the feeling in the air at that Skepticon being like, wow, being here, doing this stuff, being in this community, learning things, using the tools or learning tools to take in to this presidency is very, very important, like almost life and death important. So it was like happy, fun, go lucky for a long time there, and then it got very serious whenever, I don't know, we just all realized that it's way more important than we knew.
Yeah, it's interesting you should say that conference right after that election was very energized. I don't know how many people recall being here at the Ethical Society the Sunday after that election, but we had one of the largest attendances we've ever had while I've been here, and there was a similar feeling of energy around the need for people to coalesce around a different set of values and to express a different idea for the world. So it's interesting to hear you had a similar experience. How have you lent into that in Skepticon? So it's been like it's been years since that election, right? So, and it seems to me like the need for those skeptical tools hasn't really diminished. It's not like this stuff has gone away, we haven't beaten it back, and now everyone's back on board with science. If anything, COVID has exacerbated a lot of these problems. So what are the sorts of things that Skepticon is trying to do, the sorts of programming you're having to try and tackle the particular challenges we're having right now?
I mean, every year, when we consider who's going to speak at Skepticon, we look at relevant issues, and then we just kind of follow our noses from there. So we're always trying to pick topical speakers and workshops. And then we have, like, accessibility is very important to us because we don't want any barrier to this kind of information. So all of the old speakers are on our YouTube channel. You can watch literally over a decade worth of talks if you really want to, and then we do stream it. It is a free conference to attend. Like, we're just doing our best to find interesting information and getting it out there.
Which is a real service to the community. I mean, you're bringing in some amazing speakers, people doing workshop presentations, and you're giving it all away for nothing, and it's a huge amount of work to put on, right? So thank you. That's
You're welcome.
a great thing. You said you try and search for topical speakers and workshops. The next Skepticon is coming up at the end of July.
Yes.
Do you know who's coming yet? Can you tell us what sort of things are going to happen? Is it a secret?
It's not necessarily secret, being that I don't know yet. Here's how planning for this year went. We were like, should we do it in person? Should we not do it in person? And we just agonized over it for months. And I think maybe, 3 weeks now ago, we decided, yes, we feel good. We're going to do it in person. And then we announced it on Easter. And since then, I've been feverishly writing emails to anyone I can pull a favor for. I will say, I guess, I know that Debbie Goddard is going to come. We're trying to get Greta Christina to come out. Jay McCrate is going to come do a talk about trans issues. They were like, I'm only coming if I can do that. And I said, well, I'd be disappointed if you did anything else. So there's a couple names that will be there. I will be there if you have enjoyed this at all. I don't speak, I just do the emceeing.
So I'm thinking about, are there broad themes you would like to address this year? Like, is it, what are the big questions you think are important right now for people of a skeptical bent to address?
God, there are so many. Every Skepticon is themed, so we can start there. This year's theme is going to be family reunion, because it'll have been like, 3 years since we've seen each other in person at a Skepticon. So we'll probably just lean into stuff like that, like being back together, community, I don't know. And the speaker topics, I let the speakers choose them, because if someone doesn't want to talk about something, they're not going to have a good time, and then we're not having a good time. So it's very much like, hey, you want to come talk? What do you want to talk about? That sounds great. Or, we move on from there. So I don't know if I'm answering your question quite right, but
I'm trying to get people excited to come. I think that you're doing a great job. Do you take suggestions? Like, if our members had suggestions about people to reach out to, could they reach out to the Skepticon folks and say, I want to hear from this person?
Yes, always. We are always taking suggestions, rude and otherwise, because some of them are very good. You can email us at info@skepticon.org, or we have a pretty active Facebook page, or you can talk to me after this. We're always, we're community built. We're volunteer driven. No one takes a salary. It's just a bunch of folks who take time outside of work, school, families to make this con run.
And you're clearly incredibly passionate about this. You've been doing this for, you said, about 15 years.
Yes.
You've never taken any money for it.
No.
It takes a huge amount of work to put on even a couple of speakers at a college campus, let alone a big free national conference that, I think it was it at one point the biggest free Skeptics Conference in America? Is it still? I don't know.
For a brief moment when we weren't cheesing off the people who hated feminism.
Yes, there was a pre-schism, right? So it's very successful, a huge amount of work over many years. Why do you personally care about this so much?
I don't know how to answer that.
There must be a reason why you want to do this. I mean, not everybody gives up so much of their time to create something like this.
I mean, I hear you, but I don't believe you, because I feel like people like me are everywhere, and I just happen to have a more visible project. When we started the conference, I didn't know it would become literally a decade and a half later, like something I still do, but it's like, it's important work, and what's kept me going is the people. Like, I've met some really incredible friends who also help with Skepticon, and I don't know, I love it, but I hate it. I mean, sometimes it's great, sometimes it's a revenge plot, like sometimes I'm feeling very spiteful. I don't know, like, I have ups and downs. It's like my longest adult relationship is with this convention, which says a lot about me and my social life.
Is it at least reciprocated?
Yes.
Good. That's good to hear. Well, folks, I hope that you have learned enough about Skepticon to encourage you to actually come. It is July 29th to 30th at the Union Station Hotel, so it's not even very far away. We will make sure that we can table there, right? We'll buy a table, right?
Yes,
so we'll table there, so you can come and say hello to our volunteers and check out Ethical Society. We'll have cool Ethical Society swag for you to pick up. And I hope to see you all at Skepticon and for you to hang around and ask questions to Lauren afterwards. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lauren and James. I was at that Skepticon in 2016, and I will say that I was very glad that I was there to have that community. And one of the things that Lauren didn't mention about that is that several of the speakers completely changed their talks because they thought that they were going to be talking in one vision of America, and that week, what they thought America was had changed. And so it was one of the most cathartic weekends of my life. So thank you. All right, back to the script. If you're moved to make a donation today, we appreciate